That's these are the tools of the trade, man. I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and I was literally like, "Look, as it used to be barbells, and you
Yeah.
have to know the difference between like a safety squat
Yeah.
versus a Texas deadlift bar versus this. So it's like you need to know the difference in this stuff now because, unfortunately or fortunately, it matters."
Yeah, it definitely does.
That is
How you doing,
tough.
man?
Yeah, good, man. Like, can't complain, all things considered. Now, I have this little trick here.
Yeah, I
But
was gonna say your audio changed then. Like your voice is slightly different now than it was a moment ago.
so what happened was I tossed my headphones in. It defaulted to my AirPods. It
Moved away to my ears. Now we should be back. Now we
Yeah,
should
there you go. Now I've got you through the headset, I think.
that good stuff. All
It's
right.
weird that I can tell the difference in your tone of voice between AirPods and your fancy podcast mic too.
Well, I mean, back to my point, right? Like that's the
Yeah,
name
yeah.
of the game. That's like, oh, he initiates with his hips versus initiating with his knees. To the uninitiated, a marginal difference. But we know that to make all it's. I'm just gonna cut to the chase. I was gonna start this thing off, and the fact that we're wearing the same shirt essentially, which is like and it's a podcast, so people listening to
Yeah.
this will not know.
No.
It's the black baseball shirt with the white shoulder sleeves.
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw up a quick screenshot of that. There we go. And
That is it's also the second time we've done this. We did this at Systems of Synergy Systems in Melbourne. We turned up in the same shirt. It's great. I
well,
love
it's
it.
funny because my intro story to you was meant to be that you know what a meet cute is in a romantic comedy movie?
No.
So a meet cute is like the scene in which the two people that make up a couple first meet, and it's like the guy bumps over the girl's groceries at the store or some bullshit like that. It's
Yeah.
like we have the perfect like bro friendship meet cute of all time, and it's like now the fact that we're wearing the same shirt might make it a little less bro and a little bit more just actual relationship, but
I'm okay with that.
yeah, it's fine. We're like I always say like if I could go to Canberra and commit a crime because they'll probably just pick you up on charges because it's like if we ended up like lined up in a police lineup and be like, all right, what is he like 5'8" to 6 foot? He's
Yeah.
got a beard and hair. So that's pretty much it. But no,
Yeah.
we first met at you were handling Nathan Jones.
I
You were
was.
handling Nathan Jones at Pro Raw 9, and
Yes.
yeah,
Wrapped his knees real tight, and then
thank
both his
God
knees
you did,
exploded.
man. Well, I mean, honestly, it's like it was only a little bit of wrap that kept that patella from just, I think, totally shattering into a million pieces.
Yeah, that was
That
still a fucking crazy day, man. I remember standing there watching you like go through testing and stuff with him, and just thinking like, I just don't actually know what to do here. Like, I've still got the video, and the video is like Nathan gets injured, and then I just don't move for a second. Like, I'm just standing there, like 8 people moved in, and I'm standing there going like, I don't know what to do in this circumstance, other than like maybe make sure he's got a beer to drink afterwards because he's probably gonna need it.
Yeah, and
It
that was
was
the thing. A lot of people there were left scratching their head because I remember the medic. They had like a medic on site,
yeah,
and it was like it's just a girl trying to get her hours. Like if anyone has friends that
yeah,
are
yeah.
paramedics, it's like, hey, we got a sweet gig. You might see Schwarzenegger. We'll pay you $200 for the day. Just go stand there. Like she didn't think she was going to be like in the foxhole, like on the front lines, and all of a sudden, how heavy was this? It was something ridiculous, like seven.
Uh, it would have been so. It would have been like I reckon it was like 380 maybe because I think he opened at like 360 ish or something like
Like
that, and
771 was his
yeah.
first, and he
So
was going for
yeah, I think it was like in the 380 range.
so it's like
Yeah,
804 or something
yeah,
stupid.
yeah. I think
Yeah.
what's
So for
800 like 365.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a lot of weight to pull the old Tim Tebow take a knee
Oh
mid
man.
mid squ- yeah, and it's like
It
all I
was
hear. And I've had the unfortunate or fortunate, depending on who you're asking, ability to see a handful of these now. Like I was there when T. Cummins decided to take a knee. I was there with Jordan Wong decided to take a knee. Larry Williams took a knee. Andrew Herbert exploded his elbow. I feel like I might be the problem actually. Like I show up and it's just like, oh, there goes the quads. But we bonded over, and I think the final injury, and I don't want to out Nathan or anything like that, but just to give you an idea of like what kind of athlete he is, he tore his quad so hard that it snapped his kneecap in half. And half of it was lodged halfway up his thigh.
Yeah, the craziest part about that whole story is the next day he got in his car and drove 8 hours home from Melbourne to Canberra.
That is the most Australian story of all time. Like the only way that gets more Australian is if we fixed it with Vegemite. He played knifey spoony and then he rode back on a kangaroo. Like that is the toughest son of a bitch ever. Yeah, but yeah, ever since then I've been knowing John Sheridan.
Yes, it's been a fun time. And what a wild
time. It's been
time
crazy to think it's been that long. And you know what? The reason, like, we were going back and forth on, like, what we were going to chat about, because whenever we get together and chat, it's about everything and anything, and it's always a lot to take away. But what sticks out in my mind was January not last year, the year prior, when we were in Manly, suburbs, like northern suburbs of Sydney, and we had coffee. It was like a Harley Davidson. It was me, you, and Ben.
Yeah.
And it was a Harley Davidson dealership, but fuck the coffee. And that's like the thing with anywhere in Australia. People don't realize that the coffee in Australia, for a culture that is so, ubiquitously subdued across the board, everyone is just like, if they're any more relaxed, these people are soon to be asleep. But fuck if they're not wired on 3 or 4 cups of Joe every day, and it's the best damn coffee you've ever had.
Yeah, man. I think you'd be hard pressed to find coffee better than Australia in a lot of the world.
I didn't know it was a thing that could be good. And you don't know, there's a lot to take away from that. And like, I think about it whenever because I enjoy it now. I spend so much time. I've lived in Australia for almost 2 months straight, which is the longest I've lived anywhere in the last 2 years. And I think about it a lot when like there's stuff that I'm selective when it comes to like craftsmanship. And it's a weird thing, like craftsmanship, it's like, oh, someone's making you a dining room table or something. But like, I remember sitting there distinctly with you and Ben, and we were just having a chat on like a lunch break, and you were talking about the coffee roasters of the coffee that they were serving in that Harley Davidson dealership. And I was like, there are a few things like in the world, like there's maybe it's lifting, maybe it's like barbells or something that I might know, like, oh, this is like a Texas bar versus an Okie, this is like a Laco versus Power versus Rogue versus Ohio, and I can kind of look at that and be like, I kind of look at it critically and really start to appraise, where someone else might just go, yeah, it's a barbell. Like, what are you on about? It's like, it's not just a barbell. Like, and I remember, like, I don't remember the name of the coffee company, but
ONA.
Yeah, they're local. Shout out Ona Coffee, but they're local to you in Canberra, right?
Yes, they are. Like their roastery and like headquarters is maybe like 500-600 meters as the crow flies from the door of the gym. So yeah, they're one of my frequent stops when it comes to and from the gym.
It was just a strange thing for me, and it started to open my eyes to other things where like you start to appreciate like the craftsmanship, and maybe it's just you get older and you deal with enough shit, and you can, and a lot of times it's not much more expensive, but it's like you appreciate the benefit in investing your time into finding the people that are willing. And I think you may have said on our last podcast, like who's willing to bleed for it, kind of thing.
Yeah, fucking oath, man.
Yeah, and that to me, it just resonates.
Yeah, and to be honest, I've heard you say the same thing about a variety of different things. Like that idea that, and it sort of resonates through a lot of what I do in terms of decisions I make, and perhaps they are fiscally irresponsible decisions in some ways. But I'm also happy to pay extra for something that someone gives a shit about. Like when it comes to buying meat, when it comes to buying fruit and veg, when it comes to coffee or booze or whatever it be, I'd rather pay a premium for something that someone gives a shit about, or it has a story, or it has like character, I think, to it. Because mass-produced shit is easy to come by and becoming easier and easier to come by. But when you can buy a product that yeah, you know, someone's really put their heart and soul into. I think not only do I appreciate that more because I own my own business and I do that in my own field, but I think just like you said, with maturity and with age comes an appreciation for the things, the not finer things, because it's not always the finer things. It's just the things that people give a shit about.
Yeah, and that's the big distinction too, man. Like, there's a weird trend of people like in the fitness industry space, and look, there's a lot of money to be made, and like I have friends who are extremely wealthy, but like the idea that it's not just the finer things, that it
Yeah.
is the things that like one of my favorite quotes, and it's a little bit of a parallel, kind of more in the performance realm, is, and I was having a chat with Ryan Fisher, who does very well in the fitness industry, oddly enough, but shares the sentiment nonetheless. Was like he talked about Prefontaine, right? Steve Prefontaine, the American sprinter, and he's like, "Look, you might be able to beat me, but you're gonna have to bleed to do it." Right. So it's like, I don't mind getting, like, my friend actually, and you two would get along great. He makes custom recurve bows.
I saw you post a photo of that the other day.
Yeah.
That looks fucking cool.
Yeah. So he runs this company called Art of Bow Hunting, and he's been my best friend since you were old enough to comprehend what a best friend. He was just kind of there when they teach you what a best friend is, and I was like, well, I guess it's and it's been him since Jump Street. And what he does is he'll get these like large pieces of like Osage, which is like a type of wood, and it's like, he files. It's, you can go to a store and have them like, mass produced, like you said, but like there's a story. I know this dude. I know his brother. Like, I know the name of his sister's ex-boyfriend when she was like 16. Like, I know the name of his dog, and it's like, obviously that's going to be something you gravitate towards, but it's so easy to like do what's expedient when you have the means to, rather than like taking the time. Because like, and I think the biggest thing is like, especially now with like the current state of like gyms in the fitness industry, is you kind of can see who's resonating or like who's adopted that mindset, whether on purpose or as just like a consequence and extension of their personality being a creative endeavor or a creative outlet for their business. Is like the people who are enduring, they're all people that I would consider like kind of craftsmen that are the first in the door and the first out.
Yeah. And man, that's the thing I think with any industry really, is like ultimately the cream's going to rise to the top. And I think more and more people are realizing that there is value in people who define their craft, and it's not just about, like you said, building shit with your hands. Like, coaching is a craft. All of those things are a craft. And I think the people that really give a shit about it are the ones that stand out when it's times like these where things are a little bit crazy, and your average commercial gym probably doesn't give a shit about you, but the person that owns the gym that you train at in a powerlifting dungeon somewhere in some backwater warehouse probably gives a shit more than you think about it. And I think people realize that that's what matters now more than ever, I guess.
What was first going through your mind when like ScoMo was getting on the pipe and just like letting everyone know that doors are getting shut?
Yeah, that was, man, like so we've had a really weird start to 2020 beyond just the pandemic. Canberra's been pretty fucking crazy over the last sort of 4 or 5 months. So in January, the first of many factors in owning a business that I'd never considered or made a contingency plan for, Canberra got blanketed relentlessly by bushfire smoke while most of Australia was on fire. The way Canberra sits geographically is like we're up high, but we're in a valley. And so essentially the smoke from either the bushfires or the South Coast bushfires came over Canberra and then settled overnight and just stayed. Like, the air quality in Canberra was worse. It was we had the worst air quality in the world. I bought an air quality monitor because my gym is in a warehouse in a very unsealed, poorly maintained old brick warehouse. So I spent a lot of time freaking the fuck out about the fact that the gym was full of bushfire smoke. I now own an air quality monitor. We probably closed the gym like a total of 7 or 10 business days. We just closed the gym completely because the air quality inside was beyond what the recommended limits for any real physical exertion were. So we just had to close, which in itself was an anxiety-inducing thing, just because I had to close my business through some factor that I couldn't control, but also worrying about what people will think about it. You know, like people getting upset about our gym closing for unforeseen circumstances, those sort of things. We then had 2 days where there was a bushfire directly threatening the gym. At one point from the back door of the gym, you could see the flames. We were pretty confident it wasn't coming towards the gym that day, but we all got pinged with a location-based emergency text message that said, like, everyone in the gym got it at the same time. And said you have to leave. So I sent everyone home that day. The following day, we closed the gym down as well because the fire was still burning within a limit that is just like, I'm not willing to take that risk. And then just as we were like taking a breath and settling into a bit of a rhythm again for the start of the year, we got shut down again. And this time, obviously, for what it's like 6 weeks now, 6.5 weeks, something crazy like that. So yeah, it's slightly overshadowed my son's second birthday because it happened on the same day as that. He announced that on the Sunday, which kind of sucks. But yeah, initially, man, it was the overwhelming emotion was anxiety. I didn't know how we were going to make ends meet. We had to cancel our biggest comp of the year, so we host like 6 to 8 powerlifting comps a year normally. This one was our annual all women's comp that we have something like 70 women signed up for. We had to cancel that 2 weeks out, or postpone that 2 weeks out. So yeah, rescheduling events, doing all those sort of things, but also dealing with the like, okay, well, what does business look like for us? So that took us a few days of just pacing my living room, taking a breath and trying to figure out what the fuck was going on. By the Thursday, so it was announced on the Sunday, by the Thursday, I'd emailed everyone and said, hey, if you want equipment, come to the gym at this time. We had a lineup of cars going up the driveway and did drive-through equipment loans. So almost all our members are still paying their membership. They've all got our gym's empty at the moment. The only thing that are in there at the moment are like benches that are a pain in the ass to move, racks and monos. There's no bars, there's no plates, there's no dumbbells, none of that. That's all in people's houses, which is really cool. Like it's been really great to watch everyone kick ass at home, but it's also been super depressing to go to the gym because it's something that I've put my heart and soul into for 5 years, and it kind of feels like an empty shell at the moment, which kind of sucks. But it looks like there's light on the other side, I think.
Yeah, I want to take away from that, man. Like like in knowing you and kind of like Burley and the people that go to your gyms, especially do your comps, because there's themes behind your comps that I think for powerlifting as a whole have done more for the sport in the country of Australia than any big dogs or pro raw. And nothing against them, obviously. Like I'm a big fan, and if I were to do a meet again, that would be where I would go. But like lowering, when I see Yuri Balkin at big dogs, even to me as a powerlifter, it's equal parts encouraging and discouraging. It's like,
Yeah.
I wonder what these golfers are doing over here. That
Yeah,
seems like
yeah.
fun. Hey, can I join your Thursday night bowling league? Like,
Yeah.
what am I supposed to do with that? Like,
Yeah.
but I'm kind of on the inside, looking further in and going like, oh man, this is a pretty hectic sport. So I think just with the, like, the way you've operated Burley, and to think of the gym itself as what you've invested your time in is a bit of like it is the physical representation, but I think of the equipment in that gym and the people in that gym, right? Like, you described to me once, Burley, and it's like you walked through probably what was a real situation of like a potential member walking through the gym and basically describing it. Look, we're all weird.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
we're all
yeah. That was the story I told my girlfriend relatively early in the piece. I came home one day and was like, oh, I met this new person. They're like a potential new member. I came in, showed him around, gave him the spiel. I was like, it was a bit weird. And my girlfriend just stopped what she was doing, turned to me and was like, you're all weird? It's like, oh yeah, that's right. Like, as it stands, my gym is not and will never be for everyone. That I came to that conclusion when I worked in a shitty chain, like semi-private PT business, where it was like, it's for everyone. It's about fat loss and all that bullshit and selling people on a lie. And it made me realize that's not what I want to do. What I want to do is work with people that I want to work with. And so, yeah, we attract outsiders. I've always heavily resonated with Matt Vincent's hate brand had a line of shirts that was Outsiders Club. Like, we're not, I think the tagline was "We're not like you." That was my fucking favorite shirt for so long, man, until I wore it so much I couldn't wear it anymore. Because I resonate with that. Like, I don't fit on what most people would consider a normal spectrum of interests and things that inspire me. And so, yeah, I think what I've ended up creating is a place where people like that are comfortable, which is great. I'm fucking all about that.
What do you think the deciding factor is? Like, I feel like every big box personal trainer that I meet drags me aside at some point and goes, "Hey man, like I really want to start like my own thing." I don't think anyone, and I don't want to speak for everyone, but the majority of young trainers I meet are like, they don't want to be a career big box trainer, right? Like they look at it as a stepping stone, develop their skills, under the reputation of a brand. Like, and I work with some great commercial gyms, internationally and in Canada, which is weird because that's international because I'm stuck here. So I guess just internationally would be the sentiment I'm looking for.
Yes.
But I guess like I've not met a personal trainer actually, now that I'm thinking about it, that doesn't have eyes on their own brick and mortar. What do you think what was the distinguishing factor? Like, you obviously worked in that gym with other trainers who may or may not still work at that gym. What was it that tipped you across the line and was like, "Okay, I'm going to do this"?
I don't know that I ever went into it with that as the vision. I just enjoyed it. It was very eye-opening to walk into that place where I worked as essentially a trainee. So I was being paid like apprentice wages to work in this company, and I had no like formal qualifications in fitness. I had by that stage like the better part of 10 years of lifting under my belt. I started at 15 and it was probably more like 6 or 7 years actually. I started lifting weights at like 13, 14, and that was sort of late teens, 20s. I think I started that job. I was teaching like these sort of fully qualified on paper people who had no fucking idea how to do anything with a barbell in their hands. They'd never actually lifted weights. They would read a program that someone else wrote that was basically just a generic copy of some other template, and not understand what an exercise was, let alone how to describe it to someone or how to execute it or what it's doing or anything like that. And it was that realization at first that was like, hey, this isn't the road I want to go. Like, I don't want to work with a bunch of people who just don't know anything. And it's not that I think it's bad that you don't know anything. It's bad that you got to the position where allegedly you know something based on this piece of paper that you have, but actually you have no real experience. So that was definitely one of the first eye-opening things. The two PT, so that job I got fired from, I didn't quite fit their mold. The guy that owned the place, I had a 10-minute discussion with about how I was in the process of training for a powerlifting nationals. I was competing equipped at the time, was going to break a couple of national records. He was like, "Oh yeah, that's all well and good, but also you need to lose some weight." I was like, "Really, man? I spent 10 minutes telling you about the thing that I'm clearly fucking passionate about. Like, the hairs on my arms are standing up talking about it. And I talked about how I'm very good at what I do on a national level. And the only thing you care about is the fact that I'm not skinny like the rest of you." It's like, well, that was a pretty solid indicator. So eventually I got fired from there because I didn't quite fit their mold. They also used to make us wear polo shirts and business pants. So I could never actually demonstrate a full depth squat because I'd fucking rip my pants. Because I don't know why you want your trainers to be wearing slacks, not whatever they're comfortable in so they can move. But anyway, then I worked for another PT company that was subcontracting with an Anytime Fitness chain. The first Anytime I was based out of, the manager of the gym asked my boss to move me somewhere else because, again, I didn't quite fit their culture because I, talked about strength and pursued performance, not just running on a treadmill aimlessly and going nowhere. And then, I sort of fell into owning a gym, to be honest. I think when I first got into like studying, so I began an exercise science degree. I wanted to work in strength and conditioning for the Brumbies, the ACT rugby team. I am a lifelong rugby tragic, and I thought that's what I wanted to do. It was pointed out to me by Marcus initially, who's the guy behind Pro Raw and PTC, that in that scenario, you're always answering to someone else. There's always a head coach. They almost always have an opinion about how training should be done or what you should be doing in the gym. You're also then at the mercy of that head coach. You're not necessarily making decisions, but more importantly, you get a squad of, say, 30 guys there. They're all professionals. Maybe 5 of them love training and lifting in the gym like I do, and the rest of them are there because it's their job. And it made me realize that that's actually not what I want to do. I don't want to work with people because they feel like they have to. I want to work with people that want to do it. I'm a very, very terrible motivator or cheerleader. And I think I'm quite a good coach because I'm not very good at telling you when you're doing well. I'm very good at telling you when you're not doing well, because I think that's when you learn the most. And so, now instead I get to work with a group of people that actually want to be there, which I think really makes a difference. Having now owned a gym for the start of our 5th year, 16, 17, 18, 19, start of our 5th year, I don't think owning a gym's for everyone. I think a lot of people think they want to own a gym, but actually what a lot of people want to do is be a part of something that is a brand or is something like that, where they can express their skills and their expertise without, like, fuck, man, owning a business is stressful. And, I'm preaching to the choir on this one. But there's a lot of stuff that goes into owning a bricks and mortar location that you can't get away from, and that has nothing to do with coaching. I think it's probably a goal for everyone because it seems like this really sexy and attractive, end goal. That's maybe not all it's cracked up to be, or not necessarily for everyone. There are a segment of people who are probably better just being, is it the E-Myth Revisited, where he talks about technicians versus operators? Like, some people are just better as technicians. You're an excellent coach, and maybe that's all you need to be. And you can find somewhere where you can be in a position to do that well, and to the best of your abilities. That's certainly my goal with the gym, is to build a brand that is in a position to pay full-time coaches a living wage and be able to actually employ people who just want to be part of something, not necessarily part of their own thing. Because I think a lot of the industry is built on ego and people wanting their own brand and their own image and that sort of thing. It's like, but it's not all it's cracked up to be, and it's much harder than you think. And much
what
more
advice
expensive.
do you? Well, let's not think about that, or let's not forget about that. What advice do you find yourself giving most often? That's like, I think I parallel kind of what we do in the timeline that we did it, and this weird sort of. It's almost like, if you look at quantum physics, like the split, as me and John entered into this observation, and then we both went our separate ways, and two universes ended up being formed out of these guys with beards and apparently a thing for baseball t-shirts.
Yes.
And because we're like, dude, I remember the inception of Burley. I mean, you'd probably been open for maybe like a year-ish by the time that we met. It
was 2016 we started.
That is the exact same. So Prescript started in 2016, and then it's we've both taken, I think, similar trajectories in our respective fields. Like, me kind of more in the online-ish, showing up in other places, but you're the one who's left holding the bag in the in-person when the country's on fire and bats or pangolin or whatever the fuck that thing is that people are eating that is killing other people.
You're
left holding the bag.
It's a different ball game for sure.
But what advice, like, I'm certain people reach out to you and they talk about like the idea or the prospect of gym ownership. And like, I know the way you like, it's got to be something lateral. Like, it's probably not the straightforward, like, well, you're going to need a bookkeeper. Like,
yeah, well, look, that's definitely step one. My business partner is an accountant. Like, that's what he does for a living. He has a real job and he's an accountant, and it's the best fucking decision I ever made. Because I have no fucking idea what I'm doing when it comes to that. And I'm glad I get to pay someone to do it. The first piece of advice I always give is that you've got to fucking love it, and understand that loving it doesn't just mean you love coaching, because that's like, if you really love coaching, be a professional coach, and, you know, be in an industry, like work your way up in an industry that allows you, like, it really has like a physical limit on the amount of coaching you can do in terms of one-on-one. But if you're a person who's got 50 hours of coaching a week and you're charging $150 an hour because you've earned the ability to do that, then I think maybe that's a better option for you. So yeah, that's the first one. Because, man, apart from the last 6 weeks where I'm in my home office, I don't know if you can hear my dog whinging in the background because he wants to be let out of the room, or my child crying before because he woke up from his nap. But other than that, like, normally I'm at the gym by 5:30 in the morning, 5 days a week. I don't leave until 8 most nights. Everyone's like, oh, what do you do during the day? I'm like, well, fucking run a business. Like, I do all the things that are involved in running a business. It's not just coaching and writing programs and giving people feedback on their videos, but it's also all the other crap that comes with owning a business, that a lot of people, if you work for someone who knows what they're doing, you don't have to do that. You get to be in a position where it can just be about you perfecting the craft that is your coaching. So yeah, that's the first one. Love it more than anything else. Because if you don't, it's going to fucking suck. And it's just not worth it. Like, it's so much work for something that's just not worth it. I'm just going to have to let my dog out. Sorry, give me 2 seconds.
Nah, no worries.
My house is a series of baby gates, and he was locked in the room with me, whinging at the door. So yeah, I think you really have to love it more than anything else, because yeah, it's just not worth it otherwise. It's, you know, it would be much easier to sit behind a desk and be paid to work in some shitty public service job for a lot more money than the money that I take home. But I couldn't think of anything else. You know, I don't want to do anything else. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I think a lot of people get into fitness as like a stopgap. I think it's probably changing slowly, because being in the fitness industry as a coach or as a gym owner or anything like that is evolving to a point where it is a legitimate career option. I don't think it was when I started 5 or 6 years ago. So more like 8 or 9 years ago in terms of coaching. It just wasn't the same thing. Most people in the fitness industry were in it while they studied for something else, or as a stopgap for something, you know. And for me, like, I don't have any other skills. This is where my skills are. This is where my passion is. So I'm all in on that front. And I think I've watched a lot of people especially who own gyms, come and go in the time that I've been around, because they weren't all in on it. There was no like, well, this is it. This is what I found what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so I'm just going to keep doing it, and I'll make it work as it goes. I'm fucking terrible at planning. I have no actual coherent business plan written down ever. I just kind of winged it and loved what I did. And I think it's kind of worked out for the most part.
I always make the comparison to the fitness industry, like stripping. It's like, oh, I'm just going to strip my way through undergrad. It's like, I'm just going to fitness my way through undergrad. I'm just going to personal train my way through undergrad. And it's like, you know, you get cash rich, money gets good. All of a sudden, you're 40 years old, still on the pole. Like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's an easy trap to fall into, but I think I'm fortunate to be surrounded by people like you, people like Thomas, who are not just excellent at what they do, but also incredibly passionate about improving their game and improving what they do. And I think it's real easy in the fitness industry to be surrounded by a bunch of people who tell you how great you are. And actually, I think the more effective person in your life is the one that tells you when you're not great and what you suck at, because ultimately that's where you're going to grow.
Yeah, I mean, and hosting a podcast with Thomas Lilly. I mean, if you can get
Dude,
him to smile and say you do anything right, that's like you've done good. If Tom gives you the old thumbs up seal of approval.
Man, I've learned more out of the 70 something episodes I've done with him than I have in almost anything, and more than anything, just because he asks good questions and knows knows enough about how I think to be able to catch me up on my own bullshit, which is great. That's what everyone needs in your life.
How much, and that's the thing I've noticed, I don't have a business background. I can't rub 2 cents together sometimes to make a third. I don't do bookkeeping. I don't do accounting. I suck at very basic math that 30-year-old Ben should probably be okay at. My dad's an engineer, and I'll be trying to add up change in my pocket, and then he's I'm leaving a tip somewhere in America, and he's like, you don't know what 15% of this is? I'm like, Dad, I was carrying the one. Fuck off, leave me alone. You threw off my rhythm. Yeah. Jesus. Hey Siri, what's 15% of 100?
Yeah, man, a lot of that I learned.
Shut up, Siri.
A lot of that I learned through a barbell. I got good at calculating percentages, because it was okay, well, I need 80% of whatever my max is, and that's take 2 lots of 10%. You work it out eventually. But
how much do you find on the professional development side, not having a business background, as you mentioned, is actually personal development?
Yeah, well, and that's I think it really all is, man. I think I've been through a couple of different iterations of different people's business coaching stuff, and it's almost exclusively bullshit, because it's a lot of people who are hepped up on how to get you 1 million leads and how to systemize everything you do and all of that shit that is legitimately good business advice, but is sort of prerequisited by the fact that you've got to kind of be good at what you do first. And I've seen a lot of people in the fitness industry go towards business coaching first without actually improving their coaching skills at all. If you're selling a shitty product, just because you're really good at selling it doesn't mean it's not a shitty product.
And I think that's what really separates from me the guys and girls who go brick and mortar, because nothing says it's one thing to buy a domain name. It's another thing to have a fucking shingle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know people, God bless their hearts, they're so blindly ignorant to how stupid they are that they hang a shingle and they can just say the wrong things with confidence that I and my experience and education and results or testimonials could never sit there and say with a straight face, with the level of confidence that these people are able. Oh yeah, no, totally. I almost believe them, and it's not oh my God, really?
Yeah.
6 minutes? I only have to work out for 6 minutes? And it's but for the majority of people, the real litmus test is, how do you trade in the public market? How does the free market sort you out? So people are talking about okay, what's going to happen to gyms? In America, 24-Hour Fitness and Gold's Gym have both filed for Chapter 11 corporate bankruptcy. And it's dude, that's almost 2,000 gyms in America. There's a lot of hoist equipment up for sale. You can get a lot of adductors at a price right now.
Dude, I am stinging for the market flip in about 6 months, when all these people that went ham on buying all of the gym equipment in the world realize that training at home sucks. I am going to kit my shit out. It's going to be great, and I'm going to get it for fractions of $1. It's going to be excellent.
That's the thing I don't realize. We know the people that like to train in their garage. The people that
they were already training in the garage.
They were already training in their garage, right? You clearly need to scratch, and that's what I like about the mom and pop, for lack of a better term, gym ownership, is the community aspect is it's woven into the plates, right? And I think a lot of to what you said at the beginning, which was you put your heart and soul into the gym. It's well, not really, man. and I don't disagree with you often, and I don't think you disagree with this sentiment. It's like you put your heart and soul into the people that came and collected that. So now that rather than you're in everyone's home right now, you're like some weird Harry Potter Voldemort thing. You're just spread. Look, you can't die effectively. Like you're just spread all over Canberra.
Yeah, man. And I think that for me has been the overarching theme of owning a gym. It's always been about being the third place. Like everyone talks about, you've got three places. You've got work, you've got home, and you've got a third place. And for some people, it's a bar, and for others, it's a gym. And like we had people walk in the door and see the fucking printed out Microsoft Word page that I'd stuck to the front door that says closed until further notice. And they'd been fine until they saw the sign and they burst into tears. And it's like, I predicted all of the people that burst into tears because I knew they were the sort of people that were going to burst into tears. But it's sometimes easy, I think, especially in the day-to-day grind of it, to forget like how much a place like my gym means to people. And I was like playing under 16s rugby, and our coach at the start of the season talked about the Sydney Swans having a very strict no dickheads policy, it's rule number one. It's probably the only written rule of Burley other than put your shit away, is no dickheads. I tell every single person that I talk to about joining our gym that we've got nice equipment, we've got great coaching, but the thing that you won't get anywhere else is the community, because we run this really firm no dickheads policy. We're not for everyone, and that's okay. I think in 5 years, I've never kicked anyone out. I've had a few people who are not welcome back. Like they left of their own accord, and I would say no if they asked to come back, or perhaps politely suggest that it's not the right decision. But I haven't had to kick anyone out because the people that don't fit into our community leave, and they self-select out. And I think more than anything, that's the thing that I'm most proud about, is that the dickheads don't hang around. We don't get people like that because they're not willing to be a part of the community, which is about more than just lifting weights. Because ultimately, lifting weights is just lifting weights.
Right. When you talked about Anytime Fitness, and people can't see this, but you air quoted when they said fit their culture.
Yes.
And then, so I mean, and I understand from like, Jesus, I worked in probably like the most forceful outward expression of whatever culture can be, and at a corporate level. Like I worked at Apple for 1.5 years. It's like, you want to talk about drinking fucking Kool-Aid, man. Look no further than people wearing toques or beanies when it's 75 degrees outside with Apple tattoos on their forearms. It's like they gone done drunk the cool. This is Jonestown here. Someone sound the alarm. But it's like, how is it then do you stand on the other side of that? And then like, what is the process, or is there a thought process? Like I almost think a culture is like being cool when you're a kid. Right? Like my buddy Shane was the coolest fucking kid I've ever met in my entire life. Didn't give a fuck. Didn't try to be cool, but that's what made him cool. It's like explaining cool to your parents is kind of what culture is in a business. Is it a more of a retrospective, like analysis of the people around you and like kind of yourself, or is it something that you keep like from a branding perspective that you have to refer back to as like your center point? Like how do you now, it's like going from a place where culture was forced, how is it then that you at the helm begin to perpetuate and create your own culture in your own gym?
Look, to be honest, I don't think I've ever sat down and thought about it. I think it's all kind of evolved fairly organically and predominantly as a reflection of my own values. I know there are a lot of people that I am very good friends with who like don't do anything that would be seen as in any way polarizing, be it lean left or lean right in any issue on the internet, because they see that as losing business in a certain area. I don't necessarily subscribe to that. I mean, there are things that I'm not going to engage in a discussion about on my business Facebook page because I'm not a fucking idiot. But we were to my understanding, the first sport organization, or games host, whatever you want to talk about it, to introduce a third gender category into sport. So we, in Australia, that is, at the start of 2019, we had our first 3 gender division powerlifting comp, because I know people who don't subscribe to the binary nature of gender, and they don't have access to powerlifting in the way that anyone else does. And so my thing has always been powerlifting is a great sport, and I think everyone should be able to have access to it. So now we offer a route for people who are not comfortable in that environment. And it's not like a sanctioned comp, it's at our novice meets, those sort of things, but it's opening a door. And that, for me, I know for a lot of people, that would be seen as a business decision that they're unwilling to make because of the potential cost. But as far as I'm concerned, that, I think I got 1, maybe 2 negative comments about it on Facebook and Instagram across the whole thing. And we got overwhelming positive support from everyone I know. We had like 1 or 2 negative comments. And to be honest, those people were never going to come to my gym anyway. So I don't really give a shit about their thoughts or opinions. So I think it's probably things like that. And that has then just evolved. And I think, to be honest, if you look at most brands in, like specifically in fitness, because that's what I know, but in almost every avenue, I think they are ultimately a reflection of wherever it started, be it a group of people or be it a single person. Certainly in brick and mortar gyms, they are often a reflection of the person that owns the place. And I see the way the gym has evolved as I have evolved as a person. I wouldn't say I'd ever sat down and like written it out, but it's just kind of been a reflection of who I am. I'm, a person that makes a living out of coaching people in lifting weights, but I also appreciate that lifting weights isn't the be all and end all of the world, and it doesn't make me hardcore because I can pick up more weight than you, nor does it make me a better person. Like, it's all just fake work because my life is physically easy. So, don't take yourself too seriously.
And what I love about that is, to watch you under a bar is one thing, but to watch you on a slack line is, it's just, there's some things that your brain works in a way to categorize experience, so you don't just get crippled and overwhelmed by the things that you see every day, right? Like, there's so much stimulus input, like especially now. Like, I'm looking at like a Houston's launch space station with screens, cameras and things and stuff and whatever, and like, but so you can compute and categorize experiences in a way so that all this stimulus input doesn't just leave you scared shitless, like curled up in a ball in the corner of your room. But one thing I can never categorize is when I see your Instagram stories or posts of you on a fucking slack or bouldering. It's like, John, we fuck with gravity in a very different arena. Well, get down from there. Get down from there.
Yeah.
How have you, when did that start? And I guess kind of like the overarching question behind that is more so like, what evolutions, and when we talk about like how the gym has evolved, what milestones in your personal life have then started to shape and fill in the blanks of how the culture of the gym's evolved?
Yeah, so I got into bouldering just as something else to do because it seemed cool. I tried it a couple of times. Like the first proper dedicated bouldering gym in Canberra opened like, again, a kilometre or 2 from our gym. So I went there once. I then went there with a group of people from the gym as like a little fun excursion. And then I was hooked, and I've been doing it since. And that was like a couple of years ago now. A lot of that stemmed out of a need to have a pursuit that I went somewhere to do. I distinctly remember the moment that I realized I was going to be a coach and not an athlete, which was like 2015 GPC Nationals was the biggest comp we'd ever run. It was like 5 days. It ran from Tuesday to Sunday. I competed twice. I competed equipped on the Tuesday, hit my best ever squat, like PR total. So I squatted 410. I totaled 880. And then the Sunday I'd competed raw and again hit a raw PB. So I hit 2 PB totals and a bunch of PB lifts inside a week. But I took a team of 14 lifters there, and I distinctly remember standing on the side of the platform, having just wrapped one of my lifters, watching him squat and being significantly more nervous watching him squat than I was for my own squat, which was like 2 lifts later or 3 lifts later. Like I was going to watch him squat and then go and wrap my knees and start squatting myself. And I was way more nervous watching him and like way more anxious about the whole thing watching him lift than I was myself. I was like, okay, cool. This is what I do now. And so for me, that was when my lifting sort of got put on the back burner as a pursuit, and especially equipped lifting. Like I'm spending 4 hours squatting in a squat suit. I just don't have the time nor energy nor desire to do anymore. So a lot of that shift was definitely when the gym became my main focus. But yeah, I like doing stuff like bouldering and running on slack lines because because of exactly what you said. People question what they're seeing when that happens, and it makes me laugh. I find it funny. I think there is something to be said for mastering the way your body moves in a range of different outlets. And yeah, for me, bouldering was just a new outlet. It was just something else that was fun and challenging and something to be a beginner again at. Since not having access to a bouldering gym, I've been riding a mountain bike way more, which again, like I'm not really built for. I don't know if you've ever seen anything like the Tour de France, but they don't look like me. So that's been an interesting experience. I really enjoy being a beginner. I think I like breaking things down and figuring things out and that sort of element of things. So for me, it was, just another thing to figure out. And I've learned a lot through climbing that I've then applied to lifting. I think I'm probably stronger because I climb, because suddenly I can move my body in a range of different planes that I have not had access to for a very long time, because I got really good at going straight up and down in the sagittal plane. So yeah, it's just something new to play with. I enjoy exploring that aspect of things, I think.
Yeah, I think that's like a big takeaway. Like, and I get tripped up with this. Like, I always make the joke that, look, I'm too old to do shit that I'm bad at. That's why I do like 3 things. Like, where's my birthday's coming up, and Kayla was like, "What do you want to do?" It's like, what do you mean? Like, yeah, like what, like activities? Like, I do it every day. I get up, I have a coffee. We might go for a walk if I feel up for it. I sit on my computer. I probably have a chat with Jono later, and then I lift some things. I talk about lifting them. I write some things down about the way I lifted them. I maybe videotape one of the things I lift, and then like, whew, what a day! I'm smoked. I can't wait to do it again tomorrow. But it's like, there's definitely things like now, especially with like the shutdown. Like I'm looking at a mirrorless Sony A6400. I didn't know what that was 2 days ago. I'm now a novice photographer and videographer because I need to put more of my life on the internet, apparently. But then I start to see, like, and just the strategy and problem solving and like thinking laterally about the stuff that I do hold to like the forefront, like that idea of like this is forced on me. If without this, I hire someone else to do this video stuff. It's not necessarily in my wheelhouse. But like the idea of forcefully making yourself a novice, like Joe D always talks about, like that white belt mentality, and like what you can derive from that. And I always get nervous when people do that because like, oh fuck, they're way smarter than I am. Because like I have friends with like 4 PhDs, they're morons. Unless we're talking about specific protein metabolism, these guys are fucking like. There's nothing like you could not traverse a town in a city you don't speak the language in. Your 4 PhDs are useless. You are a useless travel companion. What are you doing? It's just, but you start to realize that, like, oh man, there's so much to be lent from experience, right? And then being able to think laterally back to something that like you're passionate about. Like, not that you're not passionate about bouldering and slackline and all that, but
but it's not the thing,
right?
Yeah, I think and that's like a lesson I learned lifting weights, right? Like squats were always my thing. I will always love squatting heavy because it requires a level of commitment above and beyond anything else. A deadlift, it goes wrong, just fucking let go. You'll be okay. Bench press, the weight's never really going to be heavy enough to kill you. You'll be fine. But in a squat, it's fucking terrifying. And it's having squatted some big weight, it was equipped. It's basically cheating. The suit did all the work anyway. But it's still like I still got under 410 and felt it on my back and feels fucking heavy. But it's like it's meant to be terrifying. That's kind of my philosophy on life, is that it should be like just a little bit terrifying, because if it's not, then you're probably not on the edges of where you're comfortable, and that's where you grow, right? Like I own a business. I have now for 4 and a bit years. I have a 2-year-old son, and being a fucking parent terrifies the shit out of me every single day in ways that I never thought I would experience. But it's great, and I love it because it's terrifying. You know, owning a business fills me with dread and anxiety on a regular basis. Yeah, again, but I love it. I wouldn't swap it for the world. You know, I think there's a lot to be said for, in a world that leans on comfort and routine and being happy with where you are, there's a lot to be said for finding those uncomfortable moments. And, you know, like I got comfortable under a barbell. I'll never get under a squat and be scared again, because I've squatted 410, and I'm never going to squat that again because I don't want to fucking put my squat suit back on. And I don't have the desire to get that strong raw either. So the squats are fine. That doesn't scare me anymore. Yesterday I was riding my mountain bike and I went down like a fucking dry creek bed ditch thing. I almost killed myself, and it was terrifying, but I didn't. And I stood up and went, oh, that was really fun. Like I like flirting with that line where like I'm not actually going to die, but it's still terrifying.
Yeah, I think the relative perspective of that, like that single moment where you're like, oh fuck, like this is bad, only can really be reached if you're passionate about something. Because you'll never, like, your body has physiological safeguards that'll stop you from ever really, for the most part. Like when I tore my pec, that was a very like, and Dave Tate talks about this or it was either Dave or Louis. That's like, he knows a lifter's done, or he knows a lifter's going to be back from an injury. Like, you know, lifters get hurt on the platform all the time. Not as common as people think, but when the first thing they say is like, do you think I can still, like, do you think I could do a third attempt? You know, is that person like, no, like you can't, but you will. And like, you'll come back and you'll be stronger. But then the people that don't say that are always the people that they never lift again.
Yeah,
right? So when I tore my pec, when you get under 410, I actually just wrote an article yesterday. Have you ever seen the Kirk Karwoski 1,000 for a double?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's mental.
Mate, how can you be into powerlifting and not have seen that video?
If you know, it's with the Instagram age, man, people are getting into powerlifting for the likes and the clout, and it's like I don't think they know. Like if you did a straw poll, not in our friends, but like if you did a straw poll of lifters and you asked them who Kirk Karwoski was, like most people probably wouldn't know. And I was meant to write an article. It's Mental Health Month. And it's like, yeah, we all got and I didn't feel comfortable writing it, like for elite, like, and I told them, like, look, I can't really do this. I'll talk about lifting weights, but like, it's not my wheelhouse. Like, I don't talk about nutrition. I don't talk about women's health. Like, I just talk about what I know.
Yeah.
Right. And then I felt bad. Like, you know, you don't want to send Dave Tate the email. It says, hey, you want me to do this? Yeah, but I'm, But he kind of like, they understand like that. But I thought about it, and I was just watching old training videos the other day, and I ended up stumbling across the 1,000 for 2, the Kirk Karwoski 1995 Maryland Athletic Club. Everyone's got parachute pants and fanny packs before they were cool, but they were so fucking cool. And I just started writing, and I wrote this article and by the time it was done, it's like, all right, this is something they could release for Mental Health Month. And it's because, like, I don't know mental health, man. I'm not a shrink. Like, I've had a couple anxiety attacks. I'm good. Like, I go for a walk. I take a breath. I give my girlfriend a hug. Like, I'm sweet. Like, I'm good. And I thought about that, what he said, right? And everyone knows, if you've ever seen it, he does 1,000 for 2 in a single ply, walked out in wraps, which is like, what a nightmare that is. I think that was in one of the Indiana Jones movies. That was like one of the things he had to get through. Walking out a squat in wraps is the worst thing ever, let alone in a single ply suit with 1,000 out of an ER rack. Yeah. Anyways, and after his second rep, everyone, like, you know, albeit congratulatory, but nervous still that the weight was on this guy's back. They tried to bring him in, and he just stood there. And he said, I want to hold it. And I was like, that's it. That's the whole point. That's the whole fucking point. It's not about totals. It's about that right there, right? It's in the Bible. It's in Buddhist doctrine. It's in Jungian philosophy, and it's in Kirk Karwoski and his fucking handlebar mustache with his 40-inch quads. And I want to hold it. And it's like, I thought about that a lot in the last couple of weeks, and that's what sparked me to watch the video. And it's like, this is, shit times or you could look at it as shit times. And especially like, oh yeah, like, cause I don't think people realize when you tell the story of like, yeah, I could see like the biggest bushfire in recorded history from my porch. And, the half the country was on fire, and let alone like, the turmoil and family trauma and your friends lose their places and, all this stuff. You live in a place that has the 10 deadliest animals in the world. I'm always kind of on edge when I'm here. It's like that was devoid of brown snakes and huntsman spiders and funnel webs and fucking kangaroos that'll kick you in the face. That stuff that's boilerplate. Like that's your everyday shit. This
So
is your next level.
On that note,
yeah.
So I think it was actually like early in the year, around the same time we were dealing with the smoke. I'd arrived at the gym, and one of the guys who was there training was like, so like a snake just crawled across my leg while I was sitting on this thing. I was like, oh fuck, okay. And so it turns out it was like this. It turned out to be a baby brown snake, which is like the most venomous snake in the world. And it was, it was only like 10, 15 centimeters long. And so we got like broomsticks and shepherded it out the back door and chased it away, man. And this thing like couldn't move properly because we've got lino floors. So it was like slipping on the floor, and it got pretty angry by the end of it. But it's just part of life, I guess.
It doesn't have to be. I got this place. No. It's north of the 49th parallel. It's cold as shit. And there's none of that. We got bears and polar bears and shit. That'll kill you. But yeah, like I think the idea like to endure, like the fact that you're, from a business perspective, from a personal perspective, like you have a kid. Yes. Like let's not gloss over that fact. My sister just had one. It's like crazy. I see it on FaceTime and I think, oh God, like if I do something wrong, it's something's going to happen to it. I don't know what to do with this thing. Like I'm putting off going to Townsville because I want it to be big enough that if I drop it, it will be okay.
Bounce. Yeah. Kids are pretty resilient, man.
I just, man, like to keep all that straight and like I run a business that's not even a brick and mortar. Yeah. And you run, and it doesn't like, I've never, funny, I was teaching one of the courses I teach online. I usually set the time zones for North America because I don't imagine being trapped in Australia with the world shutting down because China's poisoning us with the virus. And I was teaching, it was 1 a.m. It was late December. And I was in Bondi. I was just up the way from where I'm staying now. And the only light in the entire unit was my computer screen. And I was just kind of teaching by light of the computer screen at like 1 a.m. because it's like middle of the afternoon in North America where I was intended to be. And a fucking cockroach. You guys got some fear factor shit. This the size of my forearm just ran across the screen, and people can actually see like the one of the 75 arms that this thing had, and it was like running across the camera. And I sent the rest of the lecture up like this, like Smeagol on a stone, just like, what the fuck is? And I was like, I'm out, I'm done, I'm out of here. Just out of control, man. But like, I mean, to double back to the point, like it's all relative, right? Yeah. Like this will be the weirdest social disruption. Kayla's looking at me like, what the fuck were you standing on that stool for? She's so sick of my shit. But this will be the weirdest. So
that look a lot. If she's anything like my girlfriend, she gives you that like, what the fuck are you doing? Look a lot.
Yeah. Well, it's because like I'll be half asleep and then I'll wake up and then hop on a call, and within 5 minutes I'm crawling across the furniture retelling the cockroach story. And she's like, oh, it's the cockroach story again. Yeah, I got noise canceling headphones for a reason. But it's like the ability to endure is all relative. Like I remember, you must remember, Australians must remember, like where were you when 9/11 happened?
Yeah, man, I was in high school. I watched that shit happen like on the television at high school. They like set up the theater and it all, it was crazy.
Yeah,
and this will be like that, man. This is our 9/11, which is a terrible way to reference it as an analogy, but it's I think on a global scale, it's definitely like that. And look, from a small business perspective, if I've joked about it several times because it's sort of how I deal with stressful situations is humor and deflection, which is maybe healthy, maybe it's not. I don't know. I'm not a shrink. That's the point. And yeah, one of the first things I said was like, fuck, man, if I can get through the first 6 months of 2020, my business will last forever. Like I've shut it down because the air quality was too bad. We couldn't let people in the room. I've closed it because it almost burnt to the ground, and now it's been closed for 6 weeks through a government mandated shutdown. If I can get through that, then fuck, day-to-day life as a business owner is going to be pretty easy.
And that's like the I want to hold it thing.
Yeah.
It's like that's the parallels. Like you'll never, I hope, fingers crossed. And if you do, you'll be like, well, yeah, this is like a COVID times 1.5 or whatever the magnitude of the next thing is. But like, yeah, I was in the 6th grade. I was in the 6th grade when 9/11 happened. I was driving back from the orthodontist or something, getting my fucked up teeth fixed. And it's like, it's a flashbulb memory. It's and everyone remembers where they are. And it's like, everyone will also remember how they reacted. Right. And I think that's the biggest takeaway is like, because now it's what? A second wave, at least in New South Wales, second wave should be open less than a month. Is that the plan?
Yeah. So we're technically in the ACT, which is not the same. We're a little bit ahead of New South Wales because we haven't had as many active cases. We've been, I think, case free for like nearly 2 weeks now. So yeah, the first confirmation or first inklings of a date I've seen was the end of May, start of June. So we're like a couple of weeks away. So yeah, it's exciting. But also like I've just kind of found a rhythm working at home. I quite like working at home now. So it's going to be another change, which will be different.
What's the trajectory? Like, what's the takeaway coming out of the other side? You'll be 2 months, 2.5 months, new adopted lifestyle. Like what is going to remain of this? What is going to be burned? What is going to rise in a phoenix like fashion out of this sort of like, unfortunate start to 2020?
I certainly am. I think like I'm almost certainly going to organize at least a night a week where I'm not at the gym. Having a 2-year-old son and like I don't get home till 8 o'clock at night means like there are days where I only get to see him for an hour or two in the morning and don't get to be involved in putting him to bed. So I'm going to like just reestablish my life in a way that allows me a bit more time at home to account for the fact that I'm also working during the day and things like that. Yeah, like I think we're fortunate from a gym standpoint that it's not going to change our day-to-day operations significantly. We're going to have to rearrange the gym a little bit to allow enough space between things because like every fucking powerlifting gym I've ever been into, we're all about stuffing as much equipment into a space as we can. So there'll be a bit of that, but I think overall it'll go back to pretty close to business as usual. I'm a little bit more organized than I was 6 weeks ago because I've had time to do some organizing, and put a few things together that I'd been working on, but sort of put on the back burner because owning a small business is about putting out fires regularly. And then when you don't have any fires to put out, starting a few just because that's how I work better, which is a line, again, blatantly I stole from Matt Vincent, that idea that, yeah, I'm not good without a little bit of a crisis. I think I work best when there's a mild crisis going on. So yeah, it'll be different again, but I've managed to make it work so far, so I'm sure we'll find something that works eventually anyway.
I think I'm going to call this episode "Flying by the Seat of Your Pants," the John Sheridan story.
Yeah, that's probably what my girlfriend would tell you. My memoirs should be titled or something to that effect. I am fortunate to be shackled to a woman who is everything that I am not, which includes worrying for the both of us. So we kind of cancel each other out quite nicely. One of the most ridiculous decisions I ever made was saying yes to Trent, who owned PTC Sydney, when he asked about opening PTC Canberra, which was the gym that then became Burley when I bought out Trent. I said yes without talking to her and like basically said yes to working for free to build someone else's gym. And in the end, he paid me and it was fine. But I said yes because I was never going to say no. And like, it's just easier to say yes and ask for forgiveness than it was to say maybe, talk to her about it, get in a huge fight about it, and then say yes anyway. So yeah, that's sort of my approach to life.
Yeah, I think that's like the good takeaway is I think too many people get paralyzed by the wantingness or the projected need of having a plan.
Yeah.
Like I feel like when we collided in this quantum space, it was kind of like I had no idea what I was doing. I still don't know what I'm doing. I still don't.
Yeah.
We have to push this back 3 hours because I couldn't get Zoom to work.
Yeah.
I teach, the majority of my livelihood is run through this application. No fucking idea how to use it. That's a problem.
Yeah. Man, that's the greatest lesson I've learned in the 2 and a bit years I've been a parent, is that no one really knows what the fuck's going on. Like, we're all just really trying to fake this shit and seem like we know what we're talking about, so that no one figures out that we really just don't know what the fuck's happening.
Yeah, life is the dog meme sipping coffee in the room on fire.
Yep.
I'm fine. Everything's fine.
Yep. It'll all be okay. And if it isn't, then we'll deal with it when it isn't.
Exactly. All right, man. Hey, I won't keep you any longer, man. I appreciate your time. For those, the whole spiel. I'm going to start doing this at the beginning. I might actually take this spiel and put it at the beginning of the episode. The whole where can they find you kind of thing. Talk a little bit about the podcast. I really like the stuff that you guys, you and Thomas put out as far as powerlifting and just strength training goes and entertainment value. I can't think of another podcast that I'd rather
bring the entertainment value. Thomas brings all the actual knowledge. So Thomas, Lily, and I host a podcast called Peak Speak, which you can find on all the good Peak podcast apps. If you don't know who Thomas is, you should. He's the best powerlifting coach in Australia. And if you disagree with me, you're wrong. My gym is called Burley Strength. We are a brick and mortar business in Canberra. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Burley Strength, Burley Strength. And you can find me on Instagram at just Shero, SHERRO. And yeah, that's about it really. I don't have a TikTok or anything.
Thank you. I'm going to take this, chop it, put it at the front, because I feel like once we wrap it up, everyone just tunes out for that last bit. So we gotta bait it quick. Awesome. I'll stop the recording there, man.
Yeah, sweet.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. What's on the rest of the
day? In a slightly more somber note, I'm about to go and dig a hole and plant a rose with the ashes of our second dog who we had to put down a few weeks ago. Zelda, our massive melon-headed mastiff, just got to the end of her life and it was over, and so we had to put her down a couple of weeks ago, which fucking sucked. But that's the nature of owning dogs, I guess.
And how old is your little man? You say he's 2?
Yeah, so he turned 2 like in March 22nd, the day they announced we had to close.
Can he comprehend the dog?
I don't think so. So she was put down at home because we were really adamant that it didn't happen at the vet because she hated going to the vet. Fortunately she got put down at home. So the vets came, my brother came over and picked up our other dog and Rafiq and took them for a walk while it all happened. And then we had her out. I'd moved her out to the front porch waiting for the crematorium dude to come and pick her up. And which I'll tell you the story about in a second because it's fucking hilarious. For a somber story, it takes a very funny turn. And part of the wanting it to happen at home was I wanted to be able to talk to him about it and show him her body and try and explain it. And he crouched down and he patted her, and Sim and I were both crying, and we said yeah, she's not here anymore. She's dead. She won't be coming back. And he was oh, sad. Yeah, it is really sad. And then the following day he mentioned something about it and said her name and then said sad. And we were yeah, buddy, we are really sad. But beyond that, I don't think he does. I think it'll be much harder in a couple of years when Abel, our other dog, dies. That'll be a more obvious thing. But I think we're fortunate that we've got another dog and 2 cats. So it's not like the house is empty. There's a big fucking hole in the house for sure, but it's not the same as the house itself being empty. So we've brought her out onto the front porch, and we'd just been sitting with her. I was drinking a beer. I just about to smoke a massive joint, and the crematorium dude arrives. There's one pet crematorium in Canberra, and this dude arrives in a 1990s Falcon wagon. And he's maybe 65 at the youngest. And so he walks up the driveway, says he's really sorry. And Zelda, she was 50 kilos, a 50 kilo English Mastiff. And she was a small English Mastiff. Apparently her dad was 120 kilos. Yeah, right. It's fucked. So I had already moved her from the backyard to the front yard. So she was my dog. I knew she was fucking heavy, but I lift weights for fun. Like I'm pretty good at lifting weights. And so I was like, oh, so just like tell me where you want me to put her, and I'll just put her. And he's like, no, what we'll do is we'll pick up her bed and we'll together we'll put her on the ground and then we'll roll her onto this sheet. And I was like, no, mate, fuck that. Just tell me where you want me to put her, and I'll put her there. He's like, oh, I don't know. She's going to be really awkward. I was like, mate, just fucking let me pick my dog up and let's get this over with. Because like I just want to grieve now. This is just sad. Let's just get this over with. So he's like, all right, well, pick her up and put her on this sheet. And he watched how easily I picked her up. I was like, oh, okay. Let me just put this sheet in the box and you can put her straight in the box. Okay. As I'm awkwardly lowering this dead dog into a box, I hear what I thought was his phone ringing. And I was like, man, that is really uncouth that you are like, this is your job and you haven't turned your fucking phone off. That is like really terrible. And then a fraction of a second later, I was like, oh, that's the last post. He's playing wait, hold on. Because it was the night before Anzac Day. So I was like, oh, maybe it's like some social isolation Anzac Day memorial thing that the street's doing. No, the dude was playing the last post on his phone as I lowered my dead dog into this box. But he did it in a like really hurried, like clearly that's his thing, right? That's how he does it. But he's used to doing it in a like, okay, we've got it on the sheet and now we ceremonially pick her up.
Right.
You know, I just put her in the box, and so he had to fumble with it and quickly press play, and then we copped like 30 seconds of the last post and then he turned it off. It's like, that was the weirdest fucking experience of this whole thing. And like Sim and I walked inside and we were like, can we just talk about how fucking weird that was? Like, I appreciate this is the saddest day we've had for a very, very long time, but what the fuck? I told my parents this story and they were both like, oh, that's so sweet. Man, this dude has misread his crowd. Like, you have not read that room at all.
That's the step worse than that is throwing the boombox up on the shoulder and hitting play on the A track or something.
Yeah.
Oh,
it was, man. So that was a shitty experience, but one that we knew was coming. She was a sick dog and was never going to live a long time, but it sucks. You know, it's never fucking easy.
I could put the whole world in the ground, every person I ever met, and probably not shed a tear. And like my dad is really bad with that kind of stuff. Like, we had a dog that we put down when I was 2, actually. So I have no recollection of it. And my dad was 10 years before he could get over the death of our older dog and get another one, and he's since passed like this 5 years now. And my dad was inconsolable for probably to this day. If we brought it up, he'd cry. And I'm really similar when it comes to dogs. Like, I have a hard time not killing most people in cold blood.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter what's playing through my iPhone. It doesn't matter. You could play the soundtrack to Footloose. I could probably just shoot someone in broad daylight and pay the consequences. But that sucks, man. You guys gonna get another one?
Not at the moment. So Abel, our other dog, who was the one who was whinging before, he is not great with other dogs and is a kind of anxious dog that I think is best suited to life on his own. Yeah. If it had gone the other way and he'd gone first, Zelda definitely needed someone to be around. Like, she would have just been by my side forever. I would have taken her everywhere, whereas he's okay by himself, I think. So probably not. And to be honest, like, the house is just a little bit calmer at the moment with 3 animals and a baby instead of 4 animals. And like, Abel's not a small dog either. He's like a 45 kilo Mastiff cross. So at one point we had the better part of 100 kilos worth of dog walking around our like 2.5 bedroom house. So yeah, it gets a bit busy in this house sometimes. Yeah.
You weren't lying about the liking it terrifying thing.
Yeah. Look, it's not worth being comfortable. It's boring. What's happening with you, man? How's being stuck in isolation?
Yeah, good, man. We got lucky. Like, we were in Melbourne for 2 weeks out of quarantine when we got here. And that was kind of shitty. Like, Melbourne just sucks. So it's just shitty because you're in Melbourne. But we got super lucky there.
Fuck Sydney. I'd live in Melbourne any day of the week.
No way, man. Well, we got lucky because Eugene Teo, Asian Teo? Yeah. So Eugene's got like his little work, like his place that he lives, but also his kitted out gym. Yeah. And he's like, you guys can come up like whenever. So we were up there every day training, and he's got a place Yeah, it was great. Crozier was in there for a couple days, so got to catch up with him, which was awesome. And then Kale is from Hornsby, like North Sydney suburbs. So we're like, fuck it. We drove. Probably been here in Bondi for like 6 weeks.
Yeah, nice.
I struck up a good relationship with the guy who owns this Airbnb. We're staying at now and stayed at it earlier in the year. He's like a sneakerhead kind of guy. So I bought him a pair of shoes. And
yeah,
I
nice.
was like, hey, man, like, yeah. So he pissed off to Orange. We got his place until further notice, but it's all right, man.
Okay.
Like, obviously missed traveling. Like, this is the most. It's weird.
Yeah, well, when I was going to suggest that when the restrictions are lifted slightly, you should drive down to Canberra for a day and come hang out down here, because it's a fucking easy drive. It'll take you 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
Yeah, done, man. Done. Like, we're imagining, because I want to get back to Canada for work reasons. But so Kayla can't leave at the moment, which is an interesting little communist thing they got sprinkled in there. I was like, wait a minute. You know, people can't leave North Korea either, right? Like, you have some sort of like Australia, New Zealand demilitarized zone or something. But so she's she's locked down.
You can fly out, but she can't.
Yeah, so because the problem is, and this I'd imagine is like if she leaves, they have to let her back in, which they run the risk of then her contracting something and coming back.
Yeah.
So I could get let back into Canada, no worries, in the same way that she would have to be able to be let back into Australia. So just applied for a visa extension. I've been here for like almost 3 months. It'll be 3 months in June. And then, man, just hanging out. I got, today actually, we did our first workout. One of the companies that I work with for like on the education side is called Ultimate Performance. So they have one of their facilities I'd meant to teach in, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, is in Sydney, and it's, totally closed down, but it's kitted out, like a couple squat racks. It's more like a personal training,
a studio
gym,
sort of thing.
body transformation thing. But we got 2,000, 2,500, 3,000 square feet, maybe. I got a Texas deadlift bar in there, safety squat bar.
Yeah, nice.
All kind of machines and cables, dumbbells up to 50 kilos. So we just got access to that yesterday. So that's been a big plus. Prior to that, Kayla's got a cousin in Brookvale, like in Manly, that has a CrossFit box, but they rented most of their kit out. So like, there's me, her cousin, her other cousin, and then this guy who like trains with them for like some CrossFit team thing, sharing. There's 120 kilo barbell, and like maybe 140 kilos worth of plates.
Yeah, nice.
And so, but it's like their gym, right? Like, I'm not going to come in and be like, all right, like who's like, we're going to measure quad size for who gets the 20 kilo bar. I'm like, I'm just going to go, I'm going to go do TRX rows until my arms fall off. Like, I'll see you in an hour. But it was cool, like just to have it, anything, man, would just be able to move. It was great. But now, like, back into full bore, I've like started dieting, like seriously, like why not why not? Yeah, gross. But it's like, why not be a little bit terrified? And I feel really vulnerable at 112 kilos. Like, I wake up in the morning and like I walk and I put my wallet in my front pocket now, because I feel like if it's in my back pocket, someone will be like, oh, look at this scrawny little pencil neck. I'm going to fuck him up and steal his shit. But that's it, man.
If that's not body dysmorphia 101, I don't know what that is.
I have a problem. I'm aware of that. It's fine.
You and every person in powerlifting that I've ever met, so it's fine.
But honestly, it's been a lot of this, which has been kind of like a blessing in disguise. Like, I got time to chop it up and focus like on making the online stuff a little bit better, and stuff I probably would have never paid attention to. But I mean, I'm not stoked that it happened. I'm made the most of it, I think, and glad for it to turn around the other side. Like, even just like walking down the street, like we took an Uber today for the first time in I don't know, for 2 months, maybe longer. And it's like, oh, like strike up a conversation with a stranger. This is fun. Yeah,
man, I'm stinging to just go sit at a pub and drink a beer and like not drink beer in my house and be able to like go out. Like we drove down the coast on the weekend for the day. I swam in the ocean for the first time in months. Like, I didn't get to do that all summer because the fucking smoke was so fucked and we couldn't travel anywhere. That was fucking glorious. Just like,
where'd you guys
go? Down to Durras. So it's like down the south coast. Bateman's Bay is like the closest part of the south coast to us, and then Durras is like 20 minutes north of Bateman's Bay.
Yeah, I've drove through there.
It's beautiful, man. It's
love the south coast.
But yeah, if you've got a day to kill and you want to come down, hang out, and eat some food, and we can train if you really want to. But alternatively, I can just show you around Canberra and we can eat food and talk shit.
Yeah, man. I'll once the borders lift, the world is my oyster, as they say.